Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics. Thank you most kindly for joining us. This is, of course, your go-to source for the latest in politics, policy, and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you for joining us tonight once again. Now, we'll bring you some of the day's biggest developments, but of course, our top story and the big issue tonight is from Borno State, where devastating floods have wreaked havoc in the capital, Maiduguri. A breach at the Alau Dam, one of the largest in northeast Nigeria, has displaced thousands and submerged homes, roads, and shopping centers across the metropolis and Jere local government area. The dam, standing about 9 meters with a reservoir area of 50 square kilometers, has a storage capacity of 112 million cubic meters, and its overflow has caused widespread damage, even flooding the Shehus Palace and the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital. A humanitarian crisis is unfolding in the aftermath of this devastation, coupled with the recent flooding events that have swept parts of the country. Disturbing scenes from Maiduguri, the Borno State capital there. Now, to help us navigate and unpack this unfolding crisis, we have with us the Borno State Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Professor Umar Tah, will be joining the conversation, and retired meteorologist Zakariyau Darazo Abdullahi will help us navigate and dimension some of these issues on the program tonight. Let's kick things off then with a quick question to the Commissioner for Information and Internal Security. Prof, good evening. I suppose this has been a very busy day for you and everybody else in government, as well as those impacted by this development. What can you tell us about the government's assessment on the environmental and human cost or implications so far? All right. I think we're yet to connect to the Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, but we do have Abdullahi Darazo on the line. So good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on the program. Let me just get your take of what you make of this development from Borno State.
Good evening, Nigeria. Good evening, everyone. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I want to first start by sending out my condolences to the government and people of Borno State over this very unfortunate incident. It's a very sad day for Borno State and indeed Nigeria at large. Really what happened or the present state of affairs in Borno State is something that needs to be looked into by the various agencies of government. I believe before then, the two major agencies, which is the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, and then the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, NISA, gave out their various predictions. The NIMET gave out the seasonal climate prediction, which is the SCP for 2024, while the NISA sent out its annual flood outlook for 2024. Both agencies gave out their, NIMET gave out the weather and climate prediction, while the NISA gave out the outlook for the floods. And it was expected that the various agencies concerned, like the state SEMAs, will have expected to take cognizance and a lot of these forecasts and predictions so that they prepared themselves. But unfortunately, you know, these are natural disasters. Even in advanced world where they have the best of technologies, sometimes things like this overtake them. But notwithstanding, from the reports we're hearing is that it was a release from Alo Dam and some other place I was told. Well, you know, it has been raining, and this is the peak of the rain in the northeast, and Maiduguri is not left out. So when the soil absorbs much more than it can, and it becomes saturated. So it has to overflow. And you know the nature of our people, how we treat the environment. People do a lot of things that dumping waste on the drainages, blocking waterways, and the rest of it. This definitely, I believe, has contributed a lot in inducing this very unfortunate incident.
What can you tell us about this dam that is at the center of this conversation? We're seeing some of the interesting facts there. What can you tell us about this dam? This is, of course, 30 years since the previous incident back in 1994. What can you tell us about this particular dam and the amount of water that we've seen across much of the state capital in Borno?
Well, actually, from the little I have read about the Lagbo Dam, which is just about 10 kilometers from the state capital, 1994, this same incident occurred when we had serious flooding and a lot of destruction, both lives, properties were affected. This time around, 30 years after, from 1994 to date, there is a repeat of that. From reports reaching me is that the dam had some problems which needed some attention, and along the line maybe some things were not done as expected. But notwithstanding, well, as we said, it's not only Maiduguri or Borno State. Yobe, the neighboring states, and other states in the country, from the outlook of the NISA, we knew there more than 21 states were mentioned to be affected by this year's flood. So, but as regards the dam too, what I would have expected is 30 years back, there was something like this that we're experiencing now. It would have expected that the agencies concerned or the responsible person in charge of showing action on the dams, they will have taken action just that far, not that until this time around, and then we have a repeat of the incident, and then the same report is coming out that there was a case of the Lagbo Dam overflowing its dam and then affecting the people and destroying lives and property.
Was this inevitable, or in your position, just to lean on to what you were just saying right now, could this have been avoided in your view?
Well, first and foremost, this is a natural occurrence. These are natural events, as I said, that even in advanced world where they have the best of technologies, sometimes things like this happen, and we can find them in the places like Britain, the United States, and the rest of them. But what we are saying here is, it's not only the Lagbo Dam, indeed, yes, had the problem and collapsed, but again, there was a lot of rain that fell in over time in that place. So the soil, the water it cannot percolate. The soil has become saturated, so it has to overflow. And because there are a lot of structures on its way, as it is flowing and it doesn't find its way to flow, definitely this is what you expect at the end of the day. So until we ourselves, some of these things are both natural and man-made, but more of the man's activity is the one that is causing this serious adversity. If we on our own do the right thing and follow all the guidelines, the forecast from the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, the warnings and advisories from NISA, I believe will have averted this kind of incidents.
Yeah, and looking at our management of developments like this in time past, 2012 readily comes to mind, and with this particular Aloe Dam, for instance, we're talking about a repeat of what happened 30 years ago. What do you make of the emergency response services, the one that some people say is non-existent, especially given the scale of the impact of this disaster?
Well, I want to believe the various agencies concerned, like the state SEMA, have responded But when you have a very wide spread of events like this, it's not easy for you to contain it within a very short period of time. But as we said, before this flood occurred, Nigerian Meteorological Agency have sent out a warning, and the same NISA itself sent out the warning to all the states concerned. It's expected that before this raining season, because those forecasts came in before the onset of the rain proper, so a lot of measures could have taken place. First, to make sure that all the drainages around are cleared, our dams are taken care of, and then the environment itself, a lot of sensitization and awareness given to people, and maybe that may be lacking as much.
Do you think
people lean onto their culture and tradition a lot?
Yeah. Do you think we have our infrastructure is developed enough to have averted the worst case scenario regarding this particular type of development? Because we've seen so many floods in time past. This year has also been quite significant across different parts. Of course, it started in the southwest in Lagos. We've seen, how it has basically grounded activities. The human cost is obvious, and all of the things that happened afterwards. In the north, over the past 4-5 weeks, we've seen quite telling developments about how the infrastructure is not developed enough to help contain some of these natural disasters, especially in relation to the heavy downpour that we've seen this past August. Give me a sense of whether it's a scale issue in terms of the infrastructure that you are alluding to. The drainages, for instance, while in the state capital you might see a handful of them, surely they're not enough to help mitigate this level of disaster.
I think a lot has to do with awareness and sensitization, which the media houses have a very big role to play. On the part of the two major agencies, which is the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, and then the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency. The two agencies have always, at all times, provided these advisories and updates. And for instance, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency always give out daily weather forecasts and then alerts and warnings, which is a daily thing. So I want to believe if the government on its part, and that is now the state emergency agencies on their own part, they should brace up the more and then do the right thing. What I mean here is a lot of enlightenment and sensitization. We don't need to be doing a lot of what you call rehabilitation and giving out assistance. If we mitigate it at the early stage, it will save a lot of cost. Unlike when after it has occurred, then we want to go to find ways to assist the people. So let's give it a lot of publicity. Even though, as we said, people lean onto their culture and tradition. Like those people that live around the riverbanks, most especially. I remember in 2012, the floods in Kogi State. That was an eye-opener to the people. That really brought out people to really appreciate the weather forecast from Nigerian Meteorological Agency. But what we found out that even when you tell people to leave the riverbanks, they will tell you is their tradition, is their culture, and their ancestral homes. So they don't want to leave such places. So unless and until the government find a way, a solution, maybe temporarily settle them somewhere, and then after the rains, especially if it has to do with the rainy season, then they can be allowed to come back and continue their maybe fishing or farming activities, because definitely they may not want to leave that place for life. And this has been the case not only in Nigeria, but the world over. People that live in a traditional environment really don't want to live. And then two, the government on its part, people built on waterways. I want to believe the government in charge, the responsible agency that give out certificate for people to own lands in such places. They know that some of these places are waterways, which are supposed not to be given out for people to build structures. You find houses, shops, and so many things you can think of, and makeshift houses. So by the time the rain starts falling and we have situations like this of the flash flood, there is no way you can control it. So the best option is for both parties, the government to liaise with the agencies concerned, and then at the same time, the people in charge of town planning, for instance, that any structure that people want to put, it must be given a good or proper clearance by professionals for that matter, so that at the end of the day, we don't put on structures that will become barriers and then cause this type of situation that we are now facing in not only Borno State, as you said, but almost all our states across the country.
Right, okay. Let's bring in the Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Professor Usman Tar of Borno State, who is joining us via Zoom from the capital, Maiduguri. Prof, good evening, and thank you so much for joining the conversation. Let's start with an assessment. What is the government's assessment of the human cost as well as the environmental impact from today's events?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Prof, I can hear you.
Hello?
I don't know if you can hear me. Did you get the question?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted you to give us
government impact assessment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hello?
Yes.
Impact assessment.
That is the question, Prof. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, that's the question. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. The government committee on flood mitigation has been working around the clock, and it has done an assessment of the impact of the flood here in Borno State. The first is the environmental impact assessment. The flood has actually affected the food cycle and the livelihood of the people. And a number of farms have been flooded. People have been denied access to their farms as a result of the terrain that has been flooded. And generally, what we are seeing is the effect of climate change and climate vulnerability. So the government is, taking.
It appears we're struggling with the connectivity to Professor Tar, who is the Commissioner for Information. He's just actually given us a breakdown of the impact assessment on this devastation. Let's just show you some pictures just to provide some context for those of you who are catching up.
Hello?
Yeah, Prof, I think we have you back. So you might want to recap what you were saying and continue with your line of thought.
Okay. What I said was that the government has done an environmental impact assessment of the flood. The flood has affected the food cycle and also food security in the region. Farmlands have been flooded, and a number of people have been denied access to their farm. Don't forget that this time is very close to harvest season. And this flood has really impacted on the farm, agricultural strategy of the state government. We've also taken note of the fact that the flooding is all part and parcel of climate change and climate vulnerability, of which Borno State is, and indeed Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa is at the receiving end. So government is taking steps to mitigate the impact of the flooding. That is in terms of the environmental impact.
Yeah.
There is also the economic impact. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Prof.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Prof.
Okay. The economic impact is that, the flood has affected businesses. It has affected trading. The inflow of goods and services into Borno State and out of Borno State has been affected. It is no longer possible for our traders to come in to Maiduguri and Jere and buy, cows, grains, and so on, and go back. It is also impossible for them to bring in the consumables that our people need. So in terms of economic activities, Borno State has taken a real toll. The flood has taken a real toll on the people of Borno State.
Right. Prof, just give me a context of the humanitarian situation here, and also just as an update, what is the situation of things right now? Because in some of the videos we have, they were shot earlier in the morning, in the afternoon. We know things were bad some hours ago, but what can you tell us about now? Has the water receded in parts of the affected areas?
I did not get you well, but I assume you are talking about the context.
Yeah, I was talking about the scale of the impact, and we were talking about displacement here, people who are unable to stay in their homes. How are you managing that particular situation? And what can you tell us about the water level? Has the water receded significantly? Okay, I think we're struggling with the connectivity to Professor Tar. We're going to try and get him back online. But let's bring back Zakariyau Darazo, the meteorologist, to the conversation. Let's briefly just talk about your experience in this particular sector. You have years of experience, you understand these things, you see them year in, year out. Are we getting better at managing situations like this?
We are getting it better, but not best, not at our best, because over time this activity keep repeating itself, and we keep coming up and telling ourselves. I think we need to mitigate it to the latter. Nature as it is, we cannot do away when nature comes. We can't stop nature, but we can do our best to reduce its impact. And how do we reduce the impact? First and foremost, as the Prof said, as he said, this has to do with climate change. Yes, indeed, climate change has a lot to do with what is happening around us and the world over. It's been a topical issue. Climate change is a topical issue the world over. But on our own part, individually and collectively, that's in terms of the government responsibility and the responsibility of the citizens of the states concerned, is that the government will do its part. Then the individuals and the corporate organizations should be able to come in. And how do I put it now? For instance, now a lot of research work, I believe, must have been done about this Alo Dam. We have a lot of academics who have done some research works on the dam and flooding over time in such an environment. Let's go back 30 years from 1994. That means maybe 1964. What was it like? Even with the climate change thing, that is what was it in the 1964? Then we look at 1994, and then we use it to project maybe in the next 30 years. It's possible it's a cycle that will want to repeat itself after every 30 years. So then, how then do we prepare ourselves before the next 30 years or thereabout, so that such events will not repeat itself, and we'll come back to the drawing board again and start looking for a way out of how to mitigate it, how to rehabilitate, and how to adjust to some of these things. Let's go to the books. Let there be a synergy or a kind of a collaboration between the academics and then those of the people concerned, so that we have a good work on this Alo Dam and the flooding in Borno, and if possible, Nigeria as general. It will help us in doing a lot in not only us being able to stop it, but we can reduce it to the highest, lowest of the low, so that we will stop coming back again to look at the rates at which it has destroyed farmlands, properties, and even human lives.
Yeah, okay, let's give Prof another try again. Hopefully we can have a minute or two to discuss the state of affairs in Borno. Prof, if you can hear me, the question was, have the waters receded across all the affected areas in Borno and neighboring local government areas affected by this flooding? And what can you tell us about the scale of the humanitarian crisis that you're going to deal with?
Pardon? I didn't hear you well. The line is cracking.
Yeah, okay. Have the waters receded? And what are you doing about providing emergency services? Some people are saying they are unable to move from point A to point B. The federal government has issued an order to vacate people who are in danger because of this flood. So what are you doing about these measures?
Okay, thank you very much. The Committee on Flood Victims is working around the clock. It comprises of, the key MDAs that deal with emergency in the state. The committee has so far evacuated no less than 5,000 people to safety at the Bakassi camp. We have an IDP camp that was decommissioned called the Bakassi camp. And we have relocated a number of people, no less than 5,000. But we still have a lot of people that are trapped in their houses and in their enclaves, in high grounds and so on. And the flood has not subsided in some places while it is receding, especially in the higher grounds. What the committee is doing, the Borno State government is doing, is to provide platforms such as, boats from the Nigerian Navy and also from neighboring states to salvage those boats in order to rescue people to safety. At the moment, we have opened the Bakassi camp, and we have also opened primary schools and secondary schools that are on higher grounds. And people are freely taking refuge in those places. And the state government is providing the platforms for the relocation of the people to safety.
Given that
we still have a way to go, but we are getting there.
Right. Given that we still have a couple of weeks for the rains to cease completely, what can you tell us about the situation with the Alo Dam, especially with concerns about the insecurity around that area and how managing this dam, for instance, has become a bit of a challenge for the government? What can you tell us about the maintenance of the Alo Dam?
There is no problem with the maintenance of the Alo Dam. The structure is solid. It is still standing. What happened was that the water became excess and the dam released the excess water as usual with all dam designs. So that is what we have. The Alo Dam, for the benefit of the doubt, is still solid, is still standing, but it is so designed to discharge excess water, and this is exactly what is happening. It is basically a situation of excess water as a result of heavy rains this year. So right. Alo Dam is fine.
Right. Okay. Just on a final note, are you providing all the necessary requirements, medical services, food and shelter for all those that may be displaced by this particular incident?
Yes, we are indeed doing that. The Ministry of Health has, put in place the necessary measures for people to access health care. Healthcare resources.
Right.
And also the committee, the joint committee is also working on mopping up food and non-food items for, to enable the, those who are displaced to access food and non-food items. And the committee is working very hard on that. So far, people have been provided basic nutrition and also basic shelter, including, mats and mosquito nets in order to avoid malaria.
Right. Prof, we're going to have to leave it here for now. Professor Umar Usman Tar, the Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, as well as Zakariyau, Darazo, a meteorologist. Thank you both for joining the conversation. And Prof, we wish you and the Borno State government, as well as its people, the very best going forward managing this particular development. Thank you both for joining the conversation on Daily Politics.
Thank you very much.
Right. You're watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. We're going to take a moment's break. Coming up ahead, we talk politics and how Rivers State is at the heart of the conversation about the fate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. More on that after the break.